Namaste, good evening. Welcome you all for today's webinar. And we are all fortunate to have a founder, director, Dr. VK Singh. Sir is the pillar of this InnovatioCuris organization and is presently the managing director of InnovatioCuris and chairman, InnovatioCuris Foundation of Healthcare and Excellence. To speak about Sir is surgeon or Admiral from Indian Navy after 37 years in national and international assignments. He has a degree of MBBS, Masters in Hospital Administration, Diplomat, National Board in Hospital and Healthcare Management. Sir has many awards for his credit, and Sir also was the president of AHA and founder director of International Institute of Health Management Research, adjunct research professor, International Health InnovatioCuris, Ivy School of Business, Canada, chairman. So Sir has a number of credentials and awards to enlist here. We are very, very thankful to Sir because this idea of having the international opportunities and safeguard for Indian nurses webinar was Sir's idea. He wanted nurses should benefit out of this talk by our expertise. Dr. Sharon is here. And we welcome you, sir. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to conduct this kind of vibrant yet different kind of talk from Dr. Sharon. We welcome you. First of all, let me introduce, I'm Professor Lavanya Nandan, working as a director principal at Nightingale Institute of Nursing, Noida. And also I'm heading a chapter in UP, Noida chapter in a nursing forum in InnovatioCuris. And we have today here principals of different colleges, nurse educators, and also students, young nurses who are very much interested to understand how this kind of talk can help them to grab opportunities in overseas. Without wasting much of time, I would like to take today's talk about today's expert, Dr. Sharon Vasuthevan. Dr. Sharon Vasuthevan, at presently, she's working as an education executive at Life Healthcare, South Africa. And before taking up this position, she was a chief nursing and quality executive at Life Healthcare Group in South Africa. Like to talk about Sharon, she's a nurse leadership. She's a nurse leadership and education specialist and has a focus on quality in healthcare. She's a research associate with Nelson Mandela University and currently supervises students of master's and doctoral level. She's passionate about people development and coaching. She's invested in driving professional branding of nurses and has pursued the niche area in 2012 through workshop, coaching, individual sessions, and professional societies. As a leadership role, to talk about her leadership role, she has elected for 3 terms of office as chairperson of the Nursing Education Association from 2005 to 2016. She is also elected to the 41st and 42nd South Africa Nursing Council by the Minister of Health. She's also a vice chairperson of the South Africa Nursing Council in 2013, chairperson of the Education Committee of the South Africa Nursing Council, and as a chairperson of the Life College Council, and as a vice chairperson of the Academy of Nursing in South Africa for 2014 to 2015. She is nominated as the chairperson and South African representative on the ICN Educational Network and the ICN African Regional Committee. She has also an awards like in 2011, she has received a fellow of the Academy of Nurses in South Africa. In 2009, ICN Global Nursing Leadership Institute, South African delegate. So this goes on. Dr. Sharon has many awards to her credit. And also she has published many papers at the local, national, and international conferences. And also she has published in many nursing journals and authored books used at undergraduate and postgraduate nursing levels at South Africa. So this is the pre-biodata about Dr. Sharon Vasuthevan. So we are very, very fortunate to have her here because her experience speaks. She has a wide variety of experience. She has well-traveled to many countries. She understands nurses well, their position well, and also she understands that what is the criteria and the eligibility requirements for moving to other countries. So here we have Dr. Sharon to talk about international opportunities and safeguard for Indian nurses. Before moving to Dr. Sharon, I would request Dr. VK Singh to set the tone for the talk for today. And please go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you, Lavanya, Dr. Sharon, and I welcome all the participants. They wanted this topic to be covered. So if I couldn't think anybody better than Dr. Sharon. She's not only my professional colleague, but also good friend. We have spoken together abroad in a couple of conferences. Sometimes she came to India, and that is the time we also had a lot of interaction, etc. And she has promised me whenever she comes to India, we are going to have face-to-face talk with all the girls who are attending. If they are interested, we'll put them in and we'll put the share interaction together. Thank you very much, Dr. Sharon. I'm really grateful to you for your time. And I know I can't say no to Dr. Sharon and she can't say no to me for anything. So that's a good equation which we have developed. She knows all about us and IC, etc. And we have this initiative which we have taken of the forum is the one which is not for profit, because the buzzword is going around in Niti Aayog and most of these places that the standard of the nursing have to be upgraded. And that is why government is now in this budget has sanctioned 157 nursing colleges so that government colleges will do slightly better in terms of infrastructure, quality of teaching, etc. And definitely some of the private institutions are very good, and others which are not good, either they will pull forward. If they can't pull forward, they have to really close down. The nursing profession is really at the crossroad. Firstly, it is not so much paid like many of them. It is high risk occupation. It works day and night, unlike IT who can work from home and enjoy their life, etc. So this is phenomena word over that the nursing profession is going to the back seat. Even in India, a couple of nursing colleges I'm aware of have been closed down. Sweden, I know they have developed some model with India. There are also colleges, nobody wants to join in because there are some alternatives available. We need them badly, and we are not talking of commitment of Florence Nightingale, where everything this also have to be done of the people of the profession has to be well compensated. In this forum, this is first, we have just launched a couple of months back, and there are members who get benefited by various things. We will be conducting some training. We have a magazine which goes to 97,000 people. I want to encourage these girls to write. Dr. Sharon has already promised me she will also write sometime. Maybe when International Nursing Day would be coming soon. We have first time in our international conference, Innovation in Health, InnoHealth, we have put one panel discussion exclusively for nursing, and it was many things were learning for me as well. So you participants, you wanted this session, please take advantage that what best is waiting for you in the days to come. And do participate, and if required, we will have webinars, meetings, training, also maybe even one day a conference exclusively for you. So that is what is the one is how you want to utilize this facility. It is up to you and your people who are representing as advisors, that they will be conducting, and we will be resource people, putting all the resource of different kind, try to request global speakers like Dr. Sharon to spend some time with the younger crowd, as we senior job is to look after, pass on the baton to the younger lot. Not taking much of your time, I hand over. I'll be sitting on the listening end, but I'll not be talking or concluding. It's all Sharon and Lavanya. Thank you very much. Well, and many other things which we do together. Hope all the best. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. Always a pleasure to be in your company, and really thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to participate in this webinar. Also to Professor Lavanya and Nandan, thank you for your kind words and the introduction. And really, for me, this is just such a wonderful opportunity to be speaking to my colleagues here today. All right, so the topic for this afternoon was the international opportunities and safeguards for Indian nurses. And Dr. Singh asked me to address you this afternoon, and having, recruited Indian nurses myself from India into South Africa, I know that the Indian nurses are sought after. People look forward to having them in their country. As a chief nursing executive, I must say, we at one time had over 135 of them in our hospitals. And I cannot say there was a single one that did not, perform. People loved them. They loved their work ethic. They loved their clinical skills. So, for the audience that's joined us today on the webinar, you can be proud as nurses coming from India. You can be proud of your training. You can be proud of your culture, your work ethic, and the caring nature, your care and compassion. And so that is why I am sure lots of countries will look forward to having you join them, like we did in South Africa. So what I'd like to discuss this afternoon or this evening for you, a little bit of the introduction, working abroad, just understanding what are some things you should be thinking about if you want to work abroad, requirements of the countries. And I listed a few countries that, and I went in and I spoke to friends as well around what is the requirements there, a language proficiency, career progression, and then we will conclude, and hopefully I will get lots of questions. So, there are always opportunities for nurses to travel and work in other countries. I trained, for many years ago, and I'm always so grateful for having chosen nursing as a profession, because it just gave me the opportunity to travel internationally and also to be able to travel and to work. I had opportunity to work in the USA. And for me, that was, it just opened my eyes to what is available for nurses. But before we start any process in terms of going abroad, you've got to make sure you've discussed the move with your family. Because one of the things I share a lot of my thoughts here this evening with you from experience. I find that a lot of people start the process, but they haven't really discussed the entire move with their family. And then it comes as a shock when they have to leave. And the big decision, it is a big decision, and it takes up a lot of your time, and it includes money. So before you actually land a job, And you need to keep that in mind. There's a lot of preparation, a lot of forms to complete. And so don't get impatient during the process. So some of the things I thought we could list around working abroad that you need to consider before you even think about it. Learn all about visas and work permits. You can't just go to another country and work. And no matter how much you plan and organize and dream of working abroad, a lot of it hinges on the fact that you need to have a visa or a work permit before you can be legally accepted in another country. All right. So you need to get these papers first, and obtaining a visa or a work permit takes time and money. And you also need to know how long you can stay in a country, and is there any, are they connected to employment, or can you stay for a certain amount of time? Because each country has their own rules, and it's very important to clarify that. The second thing you need to research, the cost of living versus your salary. You know, because if you're going to go into another country, most nurses will go because they're looking for the money, right? But you might not know exactly how much money you will make each month. And you need to know what the industry average is and how it compares to the cost of living. So, you know, you need to know exactly how much am I going to get. So I know in recruiting nurses from India to South Africa, a lot of them would tell me, ma'am, you know, the salary is fine. I can actually send my whole salary home, and I could work overtime, and I could use the overtime money for my cost of living. So that is the kind of, you know, discussions you need to have and find out ahead of time, right? And you also need to know, once you pay everything that you need to, now some places will provide you with accommodation, but in other places you have to pay your rent, you have to pay, you know, your electricity and water, you have to pay rates and taxes, just depends, right? And you need to be able to say, well, after I pay all of this, will I have money, you know, from my salary that I can use? And I know many of our Indian nurses also want to send money home. So you need to keep that in mind, and you need to do the research. Also, find out how to find a job and a place to live, okay? Because, you know, if you go and do your research and you say, I want to live in a particular place, all right, then you need to find out, well, what are the job opportunities in that city? Because it's not always so easy, all right? And also check, well, how will you travel? You know, how do you travel to work? Put that into your budget, understand the expectations, because, you know, if you don't keep that in mind, well, you land in the country and suddenly you realize, well, you landed up in a country that has no public transport, and then you are stuck. So you need to keep all of that in mind, and even when you're choosing a job. Also, number 4, consider how much time you will have off, all right? Because, you know, why do you travel to other countries to work? You probably want to go and explore a new culture, a new country. You need to know exactly how much time am I going to have? How much of vacation time or sick days? And every country has their own requirements, right? And all work and no travel doesn't make it very interesting. So you need to be able to also know, well, how long can I have my vacation? Can I get a whole month off, which allows me to go back home and visit my family every year? All of that you need to explore. Also, now with social media, you can build a network in another country. If your heart is set that you want to go to the USA, well, you can go on to LinkedIn, you can go on Twitter, you can actually find out from people that have already left your country, that are working there, okay? What is it? What is it that, you know, how does it feel to live there? What kind of job opportunities? So that you can hear firsthand from people exactly what it's going to take. Number 6 is learn about the country and its culture, okay? It's very different going to a country when you're on holiday. When you're on holiday, you don't have to live with the people. You don't have to work with the people. You are just there, you're enjoying the places, you're enjoying the sightseeing, and you come back. But when you go and work there, it's a different story, okay? I'm not saying things get worse, but you're now working with those people. You're going to live with them, okay? So you need to know exactly what you're going in for, right? And so, you know, you're going to have opportunity to meet with your possible employers. You're also going to be able to show your neighborhoods you're going to live in. So it's important for you to have a good understanding, because sometimes the cultural differences, you know, are so vast that you just feel like you can't fit in. And that will become unbearable for you. And worse still, if you plan to take your family. Sorry. Number 7, get the hang of how locals find jobs. You know, each city has a different way. So find out, how do you find a job? You know, we may follow a more formal route and say, well, we wait for the advert and then we follow the advert and we make application. But there could be other ways. They could have a local newspaper. There could be a network. There could be a small professional society there. And there's job opportunities. Or you may have to go through a recruitment agency or any kind of employment agency. Number 8, study on how to write CVs and cover letters. I find this so interesting, but it's important. You know, what works for you in India may not necessarily work for you in the USA, in Australia, in the UK. So you need to get everything ready. Learn about how should I present it. I remember when I went to the USA, you know, they would say they don't even call it a CV or a curriculum vitae. They call it a resume. And everywhere you go, they'll say, have you got your resume? And so that was something I had to learn. And also, their resume is very brief. So it's important to understand, how should I present my resume or CV, and what kind of cover letter should I write? And make sure you know how many personal details you need to share and what documents. And, you know, I think if you get your documents in order, it's the first thing that you can do, you know, yourself a real favor. I realize in recruiting nurses that a number of them don't have their documents in order. And, you know, especially when you have young women who get married, then they have a change of surname. So their nursing certificate is in one name, they get married, they have a new name, they apply on their new name, and nobody can see how those two names come together. So it's very important for you to have things in place. Do you have a marriage certificate? You know, do you have your original ID? Do you have your spouse's ID? All of those things are supporting evidence, because remember, your documents are being reviewed without you being present. So it's very important for you to be able to give them everything they need, and give them in such a way that it's easy to understand and to follow through. The 9th point is read about qualifications and certification. Depending on your education, your skills, and your work experience, and the new country you want to go to, some of them may say, in addition to your professional qualification, we want a language certificate. Okay, so check that before you just assume, well, I'll get away with just presenting my nursing qualifications. I've got my degree, I've got a master's. That may not be enough. They may want to see your language proficiency. And, you know, it may mean that you need to spend more time and money to get where you want to go, because language is key. And the 10th point is prepare yourself for things to be different. Because remember, you're going to a new country, right? You're starting something new. You're doing a new job. It's a new chapter in your life. So you need to be open to opportunities. And always ask yourself, well, why did I start this process in the first place? What were my reasons for going abroad? You know, from the nurses I brought from India into South Africa, a lot of them used to tell me, ma'am, I want to come because I want to support my brothers and sisters that are coming after me. I want to support my parents, you know, and I used to say, well, you need to know this is a sacrifice you're making. Because when you move to a new country, you get a culture shock. Now, in some parts of South Africa, they don't speak English, they speak Afrikaans. And so that's like, you know, it's similar to the Dutch language. And I know when we place students, nurses there in that area, they used to say, when I visited them or we found out like how you're doing, they would say, but the language, they don't speak English here. And that became something that affected them. Or you feel homesick after a while because the country is so different to what you have. One of the biggest things I know the nurses battle with is the food, because you go to a new country and the food is totally different to what you usually have at home, right? But, you know, you need to be able to prepare yourself for that. You know, I know nurses, some of my nurses, they bring their spices, or we actually do the research here, and we will find out where are the shops that sell traditional Indian food. And then we're able to assist them. So remember, this is your opportunity and you are going to create memories for yourself, but you need to prepare your mind for it. So I'm going to take you through a few countries that I've researched, and I've spoken to some of my colleagues that are there, just to say basically what is required. So the first country I looked at was Australia. And I know a lot of Indian nurses are keen on Australia and New Zealand. And I've lost some of my own, you know, nurses that came from India who have now gone to these countries. But if you are an internationally qualified nurse or midwife and you want to go and work in Australia, it is important for you to review the information about immigration to Australia, and then registration and employment as a nurse in Australia. All right. These are two very separate processes, and you may be able to get a visa, but you may not get a job, or the other way where you get a job, but you may not get a visa. And so those two processes are integral to working in Australia. You need to first apply to the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Australia, and you will also need to apply for your visa separately to the Australian Department of Home Affairs, right? And when you start the process, don't think because you started the process, you can make some hasty decisions and resign from your current job, all right? Because there's a time frame, okay? We don't know how long it can take. So until your registration is approved and you have proof that you're going to get your visa, you should not be making those irreversible decisions, all right? And there's lots of information on there on the internet around getting your visa application, including your skills assessment and assessing authorities on their website. So in Australia, they have the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Accreditation Council. It's an independent organization. It's gazetted by the Minister of Immigration, and their job is to perform skills assessment for migration purposes. That's what they do. They assess the skills of internationally qualified nurses and midwives who want to migrate to Australia under the General Skilled Migration Program. So that is like a special program for scarce skills not available in Australia. And as you know, we have a global shortage of nurses. Every country you go to will speak about their shortage. So does Australia. And nurses are sought after in Australia because they cannot train enough of their own. So the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, APRA, assesses your application for registration of all nurses wanting to come and work there, and they do it on behalf of the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Australia. And then it's governed by this Health Practitioner Regulation National Law. All right. And each territory, that means each state within Australia, has their specific requirements. And the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Accreditation Council will take into consideration your work experience in assessing your application and your qualification. And then they will use that to determine whether you're suitable for skilled migration under their legislation. All right. And so they also have a process of evaluating your qualification against the equivalent qualification in Australia. And most countries do that. We do that in South Africa as well. International applicants must first meet the registration standards and the qualification criteria, and then they're eligible for registration. So how much does a nurse make in Australia? Annually, you could earn up to 87,885 Australian dollars, right? And the hourly rate in Australia for a nurse, a registered nurse, is $45.07. All right. Entry-level nurses in Australia can earn something like 76,000 per year. And most experienced nurses, especially if you are highly skilled nurses, specialist nurses, you can make up to 120,854 Australian dollars per year. So the money is good, and it's just understanding the process of going across. And you know what? And they really appreciate good skilled nurses. Okay. So then moving on, then in Canada, Canada is also very specific, right? So first of all, they will look at your nursing education. Where were you trained? In Canada, they have two types of nurses. They have the registered nurse and the registered practical nurse. Okay, so they will then look at your nursing education that you've received, and they will evaluate it to see, okay, have you completed your qualification and where does it sit against the Canadian nurse? Okay. They also want evidence of practice. So they want to know, what was your experience? And when you talk about your experience, give the detail. You know, you don't say just work for 2 years in a medical ward. When you were in a medical ward as a registered nurse, what did you do? They want to know what kind of skill base you actually have in order to say that's your evidence of practice. They have a registration examination in Canada, and you must complete that registration exam, you know, for being a registered nurse, and that allows you to practice. You also do a written exam. They call it the jurisprudence examination, and you do that exam. So you do both a professional registration exam, and you do almost like a practical exam. They're very big on language skills, so you must be proficient in English or French if you've learned that. People that can go and work in Canada, if you're a Canadian citizen. So if your spouse, you know, you became a citizen because of your spouse's work, if you're a resident of Canada, or you hold authorization under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, okay? That allows you to practice nursing in Ontario, which is one of the states in Canada. They also very big on you being truthful about your past offenses or any findings. If you've been involved in any kind of medical legal risk or incident, and that has been recorded with your nursing council, they would like you to kind of be truthful when you come across. And also, you must declare if you're suffering from any physical or mental condition or any disorder that may affect your ability to practice as a nurse. Okay. So during the application process, the college assesses all applicants to determine whether they meet the registration requirements. If the college finds that you do not meet one of the requirements, they may then ask you to provide more information, or they would ask you to complete an evaluation, or they may ask you to do some additional learning, additional education that will allow you to meet the requirements. And you have a right to request a review of your application. If they deny you registration, you can appeal because maybe you haven't provided all the necessary information that they require. All right. What they are currently doing in Canada at the moment, because they are very short of nurses and they really want to attract nurses, international nurses, to come and join them, they are updating their requirements. They are becoming more efficient in how they assess the information. So they're kind of keeping, having a more open view of it. They're also updating their policies related to the full registration requirements. They're reviewing their language proficiency, their evidence of practice, nursing education, and police criminal record check. So they're trying to make it easier for people, but it'll be a process. You must complete their registration exam, which is set by the college. So in Canada, they refer to their council as a college, right? And then you also have to do that jurisprudence examination. Okay, New Zealand. I know there's lots of Indian nurses that are going to New Zealand. They have the credentials verification service for the Nursing Council of New Zealand. So if you are an internationally qualified nurse like you are now, once you put yourself as a nurse that's wanting to move from your country of origin to another country, you become an internationally qualified nurse because now you're operating on a global platform. If you want to go and work in Canada, you must first apply to the credentials verification service for the Nursing Council of New Zealand, right? And that is based at the CGFNS, which is the Commission on Graduates of Foreign Nursing Schools. Okay, so that's what you have to do first. It's secure, it's a direct method for internationally qualified nurses, except for those licensed in Australia. So Canada and Australia have a reciprocal relationship, meaning that they are willing to recognize each other's nurses. So if you come from Australia, you have a different process, but for all of us, we have to go through this credentialing verification service. The process is designed to determine that you are who you say you are, and that your education and work experience are true and satisfies the requirements of the Nursing Council of New Zealand. So they really want to get into your education, what kind of education you had, how many hours of practical did you have, what did it take for you to complete it? Then did that lead you to a registered nurse status? What kind of work experience did you have thereafter? They are interested in that. The CGFNS then verifies and authenticates your identity documents, all right? So your documents are very important. Make sure you got those documents in order before you even start the process. I can tell you, the nurses I recruited from India, My biggest challenge was their identity documents, the name change. You know, the person is now John, got the surname of John, and then tomorrow it's Matthews. And I can't see the link. There's no document to say, how did, Anne John become Anne Matthews? And then we've got to keep asking for more information and get those affidavits. All right. They then, the CGFNS prepares a report and they review it and authorize it, and then they send it to the Nursing Council of New Zealand. When they receive your report, then you're invited to apply for registration with the New Zealand Nursing Council. All right. So it's like a 3-step process. You apply to CGFNS, you request CGFNS to send your report to the Nursing Council, then you apply to the Nursing Council for the registration. And they also have their own standards and requirements. To be eligible to register there are 7 areas, or standards for registration that you need to meet. And this makes sure that you are safe and competent, in terms of being prepared to nurse in New Zealand. So they look at identity. Your identity documents must be clear. All right. It must really say who you are, and this is the same person. English language proficiency, your current registration in your country of origin. What nursing qualifications did you get from your nursing school or university? Any post-registration experience. So did you do a master's, or did you go and do some critical care nursing, or theater nursing, or emergency care nursing, or neonatal ICU nursing? You need to spell that out. Fitness to practice is very important. And then they will also check whether you're competent to practice. So the average registered nurse salary in New Zealand is about 71,510 New Zealand dollars. And the nurses pay, you can see it's a little less than Australia, 36.67 New Zealand dollars per hour. And entry-level nurses get about 65,904, almost 66 New Zealand dollars per year, while more senior ones get about 78,000 New Zealand dollars per year. Okay, then coming to my country, all right? So application to work in South Africa can be direct or indirectly through an employer or agency. And this is very important because many nurses apply through the agent and they have to pay huge sums of money. And yet there are companies in South Africa that are busy recruiting nurses. Okay, so if you're a direct application, that means you choose to come to South Africa and you want to process these papers yourself. You submit your international qualification, your qualification that you got in India, to what we call the South African Qualifications Authority. And that is the authority that evaluates our qualification. And they will give you, they want to see how is that, what is the equivalent of that in South Africa? Okay, so you get a statement from them to say your diploma or your BSN in India is equivalent to a South African diploma in general nursing or a South African bachelor's in nursing. Once you receive that document, you submit that document together with a whole list of other requirements to the South African Nursing Council. And the South African Nursing Council has a document. And if you go through that document, it's very easy to work through. Same things, identity document. They want to know a full description of your education, your experience, any additional training you've done. They want all of those details. The Nursing Council in South Africa will also request a transcript from the Indian Nursing Council, or your individual states have their nursing councils as well. All right. And they will also write to your training institution to get a transcript. Once you meet all the requirements by the South African Nursing Council, you'd be requested to take the professional registration examination. Okay? On successful completion of those examinations, you are then requested to apply to be registered with the South African Nursing Council. When you are registered with the council, then you apply to get a work visa and you go to a Department of Home Affairs in South Africa. You will only be employed if you have your work visa and your SANC registration. Employers in South Africa will not accept you if you don't have one of those documents. And the visa is renewable. And if you stay in this country for 5 years, then you can achieve permanent residency. Like every other country, if you come through an agency or have been interviewed by a prospective employer, you will follow the same process, except that the employer will fund all your fees for your assessments, for your evaluations, for the various processes, right? The prospective employer will also give you a letter of offer, which will enable you to apply for a visa, because the Department of Home Affairs wants to know, does this person actually have a job here in South Africa? Unfortunately, unlike other countries, the timelines, we can't say like it's 30 years, within 30 days you will hear from them. Sometimes it could be longer, but it all depends on how much of information you give and how accurate your information is. Then the United Kingdom international registration process is split into key stages. The first one is completing an initial eligibility and qualification application. That's the first step. Then you take your test of competence, then completing your registration application, which requires you to demonstrate that you meet their health and character requirements and that you have the necessary knowledge of English. And you can understand United Kingdom Queen's English, right? So what evidence will you need? You're asked to provide information throughout your application process. They do this so that they can confirm that you are eligible to join the register. And they also want to make sure you have the right skills, knowledge, and training to practice safely and effectively in the UK. They're very interested in your qualification and registration process. They will ask you to provide information as part of your eligibility and assessment application, evidence of your identity, copy of your passport, copy of your original certificate. And if it's not in English, they would ask for you to translate it. Your name, the name of the qualification, and the date the qualification was awarded to you, that certificate is important. They need the contact details of your educational institution, the details of the regulator, that's your council in your country, all right? And if you were there previously, they want to know, they want a copy of your previous registration as well. They will also need permission to contact your regulator. So they will ask you for permission to contact the nursing council in whichever big state that you come from, so that that will allow them to register with you as a nurse or midwife. Okay, if you've just completed your training and you've never been registered before, then they want to know, well, tell us about your education. They'll verify that. And they will evaluate your application and let you know within 2 weeks, 14 days. All right. And then when you complete your registration application, they will ask you for evidence of your health requirements, your character requirements, your language requirements, English, right? And confirmation that you have or will have indemnity arrangement when you come to practice in the UK. So some kind of cover to say, if anything goes wrong, what kind of cover, what kind of insurance do you have? And once you've completed all of this, they will need your permission to contact your referees, anybody that you've given as references, and then they'll make a decision on your application, and they indicate that they're able to do it within 30 days. All right. Then the last one is the United States. They have 59 nursing regulatory boards in the United States. So in the different states, there's a board, okay? You are eligible to work in the United States if you're a registered nurse in your home country. You also go through the CGFNS, the Commission on Graduates of Foreign Nursing Schools, to see if you're qualified. When you know where in the USA you'd like to work, you then apply to the State Board of Nursing in that state. So do you want to go to Florida? Do you want to go to New York? Which state do you want to go? So you need to go and do your homework. You need to look at the map. Where about in the USA do I want to work? And then after you apply to the State Board, all right, the Board of Nursing, they do all the evaluation. They'll ask you for the same information. Then they put you forward to take the NCLEX examination. So the National Council Licensure Examination, also known as NCLEX, is the national exam that all nursing students must pass in order to become a licensed registered nurse in the United States. It's a big one. You have to know that, right? I did my NCLEX, and you know, what's nice is there's a lot of teaching support. You know, you can get online support in order to go through the questions, all multiple choice questions. It is the exam that will determine whether you're a registered nurse or not. Their own nurses go through the same exam. Like in South Africa, our nurses do a professional registration exam. So you can finish your qualification at the college or the university. You still have to take the council exam, and then you get registered. So the NCLEX is made up of 135 questions. They give you up to 5 hours to finish the exam. But if you get the first 70 questions, you get over 80% of those questions correct. They say you have been successful and you can go check out of that exam. So if you prepare well, then the chances are you will pass. So, you know, I wasn't a clinical nurse for a long time. I was lecturing when I took the NCLEX, but I was able to do it with the first 70 questions. And as long as you prepare, and if you haven't answered enough questions correctly, your clock runs out and you'll fail the test. So you got 5 hours, but some people are not good with multiple choice, because multiple choice really tests the depth of your knowledge, right? And they currently have about an 86% pass rate on the NCLEX at the moment. All right. What are the salaries like? Now, I got a 2019 mean salary. Currently, the LVNs, you don't have them in India, get about $48,500 US. A registered nurse gets $77 US. Remember, the US dollar is stronger than the Australian dollar. Nurse practitioners, that's clinical nurses, get $111,840 US, and nurse midwives get $108,810 US. All right. So in the USA, there's 8 key steps for foreign educated nurses. First of all, you've got to meet the educational requirements. You complete a foreign educated nurses course. You take and pass an English language proficiency test if mandated, especially if they're not sure of your language skills. You have to pass the NCLEX. You obtain a credential evaluation. There's a body that does credential evaluation. Then you find a nursing recruiting agency or a US-based employer. They will then apply and obtain a RN immigrant visa or a green card for you. If you want to work in the USA, you usually get a green card, and then you accept an RN position. So I didn't get a green card because I was there on a Fulbright scholarship. I went there to do my master's. But while I was there, I decided, oh, I could work as a nurse here. And I did my state boards. And then, and once you got it for life, eh? You just need to keep yourself updated. with the NCLEX. Okay. So language proficiency is a requirement of every country outside of India. It's, if I can tell you anything else, is get your language proficiency right, okay? And get your documents right. There are a number of English assessments, including a test of English fluency in language, TEFL, which is available online. The importance is to start communicating in English first. You have to have that verbal communication. Remember that each of us from different countries have a particular accent or dialect. And we need to get over that, so that we've got to make sure that the people understand us. Okay, so practice that English. Go for English classes if necessary. Your proficiency will be tested during the interview and during the assessment. And employers are very particular when offering positions. If your language skills are not up to standard, well, they're going to be reluctant to give you a job. Career progression, will your career progress and future studies? Yes, that's possible in all countries. They actually encourage you to study, okay? And lots of companies support this foreign nurses. We had a lot of the Indian nurses joining us, and they didn't have the specialist qualification. And they did their post-basic qualification with us in critical care and emergency and all of that. And now they use that to leave us and go to other countries, but they were able to study and they were able to graduate with us, all right? If you do well in your role, your employers will treat international nurses very well. Some of them really go out of their way. They give you accommodation when you arrive, for a short while. I mean, we give accommodation all the time. Only when you bring your family, then we cannot give accommodation. And in many cases, nurses are too quick to bring their family. And I always say, you need to settle down first. Then when you think you know everything and you know your way around and you know exactly how much you're earning, then you can bring your family. And there are promotion opportunities into management as well. And you can also pursue further studies at local universities. Always ensure you have all your original documents on hand, because even when you go to register at university, they're going to ask you for that. So in conclusion, working abroad is not only a great experience, but it can launch your international career and open doors for new opportunities around the world. And I'm a case like that. I went from South Africa and my world just changed. And I now am able to connect with people internationally. I've been able to travel the world, and I've been able to still work here in South Africa and still do so much of work internationally. Your language skills will skyrocket, and your cross-cultural competencies will go through the roof while bringing all of those other soft skills along. In short, if you have the opportunity to work abroad, do it. I thank you. Thank you, Professor Lavanya. I'm very happy to take questions now. I'm sure there's lots of questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. You really went through many countries. I think you've taken even the details, even the small details you have gone through. I can only say that there's a quote, time is the best orator and moment is its best listener. So you are orator, you have created a time. There are listeners, they have made a moment. So like Japan and even some other countries are also opened up now for nurses, like Germany. Germany so has opened up for nurses. And many nurses are happy to move to these countries, especially Japan. I got many agency asking for my students, like especially after their 4th years, that they train them and they send them. And as I was going through the literature and they are very open for nurses from, especially from Asian countries, from India. So can you brief a little bit about Japan and Germany also, if you have any information on these two countries as well? Then we can take.
So unfortunately, I don't know too much about Japan. But if you want me to find out, I can get information for you. I don't know, but at the moment, I know that Germany is very keen for us in South Africa to train nurses for them as well. So I'm just having a meeting next week with the German ambassador in South Africa, trying to understand what are their needs, and to the extent that the Nursing Council in Germany is willing to accredit our facility for their nurse training, and well, of course, with the provision that we also teach German as a language.
Yeah.
So in order to work in Germany, you must know German, and they won't accept you otherwise. So that becomes a little bit of a stretch. But they also, have registered nurses, and they're very keen to collaborate. So they are definitely looking for nurses in Germany.
Yeah.
But I could find out about Japan. I haven't explored that. I do have somebody I know who lives in Japan. We can get some information.
Thank you. Thank you for that. As the other day we were discussing, many nurses are happy to migrate to Australia now, because the remuneration pay scale is high compared to other countries.
Yes.
Many are moving to New Zealand first, then from there they are moving to Australia. This is
Australia. Yeah.
So is that true that it is easy to migrate from New Zealand to Australia than from UK to Australia?
I think that it's easier because, as I mentioned, Australia and New Zealand have that reciprocity in terms of their registration. So if you get registered in Australia or New Zealand, those two countries have a way of recognizing each other's registration. And so lots of nurses like to go to New Zealand first because it's smaller and it's easier to adapt, and then to move to Australia, which is much bigger. And, it could be a little bit of a culture shock to just go from where you are now straight into Australia. It's a bigger country. There's more people. The culture is a little bit different because Australians can be very direct and very brash. And if you're not that kind of person, you often can feel quite hurt. Whereas in New Zealand, it's a much smaller population. I don't think New Zealand has more than 3 million people. But remember that they also have different kind of weather conditions. They're more exposed to earthquakes and that sort of thing. But I notice, I've seen it now with a lot of our nurses, they're more eager to go to New Zealand.
Lavanya, it is not only your question and she answers. There are participants and they have posted a question and question answer box. Please take up those questions. Give more chance to these young girls.
Yes,
What
yes.
is their problem?
Okay.
We won't let you go anyway to New Zealand.
All right. So I see you've got a question here. I wanted to pursue a DNP, a doctorate in nursing practitioner in psychiatry in the United States. Do I need to study MSc nursing and psychiatry and then have experience to do a DNP? Or can I study DNP after BSc? So I think that I know that you have to have an MSc. I did my MSc in the United States before you go on to doctorate level. And so they would expect that you would have also at least proved yourself. What's nice about the masters and the doctorates in the United States, you accumulate credits. So you need a total of 96 credits to get a PhD, and you already get about 36. You can get a minimum of 36 of those credits just from your MSc. And your MSc doesn't only have to be a full thesis. You can do project work, or you can do an articled MSc. And then you can do a little more coursework. And then the final credits are for your PhD, well, for your doctorate and for presenting your thesis. So your question 2, do we have access to online courses while working abroad if we want to further our education in nursing? I think there's a number of online courses. The one thing I must say that came out of the pandemic is the fact that there are more online courses available. There are more universities offering online courses. But I think that it's important for you to know, how do those online courses fit in with the country that you wish to go to? Are they recognized by that country? Okay, so if you are able to evaluate that and check with that receiving country that I want to pursue this online course, do you recognize the certification? Then it'll hold you in good stead. So check that. How long will it take to obtain a PR in each country? So it just depends. In South Africa, it takes 5 years to get permanent residence. In the USA, you can have a green card and stay there for a life with your green card. A green card is like a ticket into the USA. Once you got it, unless you want to become a US citizen, then you can apply for citizenship. In the UK, they also operate very much like South Africa. If you stay there for 3 years, you can apply for permanent residence. And if you leave them in that 3 years, you've got to come within a certain period of time. So it's not too difficult in the UK. Australia and New Zealand, I'm not so sure about their permanent residence and how long it takes. Question 4, is it difficult to get a job as a psychiatry nurse? What are the requirements? Well, I suppose if you have done psychiatry in your undergrad, then you can get a job in a psychiatric institution or psychiatric community facilities. And they would expect that you have done some psychiatric training in your undergrad. If you didn't do it, then you would be expected to do a postgrad in psychiatry in order to practice. Ideally, we shouldn't have nurses without psychiatry working in psychiatric institutions. How many attempts of NCLEX can be given? You can go and write NCLEX for as many times as you want. It just costs money. And but if you fail, you can apply immediately, and within the next few weeks you can write again. It's really up to you. But I can assure you, I know that I wasn't even a clinical nurse, and most of the questions in NCLEX are clinical questions, but they really force you to think critically as clinical nurses. And I was able to pass. So if I can pass, I'm sure all of you will, because you are much younger, and I'm sure you are sharper than I am. So I know that with good work, and I've got 2 sisters that work in the US. One has been there for over 50 years. The other one has been there for about 25 years. And they both were able to get their NCLEX at first go, coming from South Africa. So I don't think it's too bad to get to pass your NCLEX. And then what is the future in South Korea? Unfortunately, I don't know too much about those countries. I didn't even explore them. I think when Professor Lavanya and I looked at the countries, we thought that the countries we discussed this evening would be things that you are more interested in. But look here, we can always explore that. There's just so much information available, and we can see what's available. Okay, I don't know. I think I've answered most of your questions.
Yes, I think There are no questions here. If
Any other questions coming through?
If anyone has a questions, please put question. Participants are young nurses, many participants. What exams must be taken in order to be admitted to study MSc nursing in abroad?
Okay, so if you want to study MSc in the United States, I can just tell you from my experience, I had to do the GRE exam. You know, it's a graduate record entry examination. And it's really just because I had done most of my studying in South Africa. And this was the first one I was going to do in the USA. They asked me to do that. And basically, it's just to check, you know, how are you in terms of performing at a certain level? And a lot of general knowledge questions, but also some problem solving and that sort of thing. And that was the only exam I wrote. And I wrote test of English, TOEFL, to enter into the USA, even though I speak, you know, we speak English here in South Africa, but they still wanted me to write that because I come from Africa. And so those are the only two exams, especially you haven't done any work with them in their country that they would expect. And it's really just to evaluate you prior to accepting you on a program.
So there's a question. What are the opportunities for mental health?
Ma'am, what are the opportunities for mental health nurses abroad? I think I've discussed that.
Yes.
You know, are mental health nurses and psychiatric nurses one and the same thing, I suppose? That's how we see them. Do you all see them as two different things?
No, that's the same thing. Mental health
Same
nursing,
thing.
they
Yeah.
are both the same. And as you said, enormous opportunities for nurses abroad with the mental health nursing specialization. I think this candidate must be a mental health nursing specialized, if I'm not wrong. So there are a lot of opportunities in
It's sought after the USA, looking for a lot of psychiatric nurses, because remember, they have a lot of their units. They have those Veterans Association units, hospitals for people that have served the country, and there's lots of job opportunities there. So which is the best country to migrate regarding working culture? If I have IELTS 7. What is that?
IELTS, that is a English language.
Oh, proficiency.
US, right? So that is
Yeah.
IELTS.
You know, my thing is, it's not which country which will be best that I say. It's what's best for you. Which is the country you long to be in? You know, I know I've had friends that went to the UK and they thought it'll be easier to work in the UK, but they felt that in the UK, most of the jobs they were getting were in old age homes and with old people. The UK has a big old age population, you know, and if you want to go, it just depends where you want to go. And that's why those first few slides I did on working abroad is so important. You need to do that exercise. You need to do that reflection to say, if I want to go, which country do I see as a country of choice for myself and why? It's a question you must ask. You know, it's not a question that anybody else can answer for you because you know exactly where you fit in. Some people would want to go to a particular country because they heard about it. Or some people got family and friends there. Some people have read about their nursing and their nursing attracts them. It just depends on you as an individual. I can't recommend. I'd like to say you all can come to South Africa, but you know, it's whether you would like to fit in and whether the country appeals to you. Okay. So I don't think I really answered your questions. What exams must be taken in order to be admitted to study MSc abroad? Did I not answer that?
Yes, you already answered that question.
I did. Okay.
Ma'am, we
How
are
many
voluntarily,
years of experience are required before being admitted to MSc nursing abroad. No, they don't need years of experience. You can go straight from bachelor's to MSc. But it'll help you if you have experience. What helps is if you want to do an MSc, then, you know, you'll have a lot of free time, you know, in between. So if you have got some work experience, you can write your exams, you can practice as a nurse to get a feel for what nursing is like in that country, part-time. You know, I used to work 20 hours a week as a nurse. I used to visit patients at home as a home health nurse. And I enjoyed it, I must say. It was really nice.
There's a question from Ekta. Ma'am, please elaborate how and where one can apply for psychiatric nursing job in abroad after completing MSc in mental health nursing.
I think there's so many places you can apply. You know, you can apply to, it depends where you'd like to go. You can apply to any of those countries. Australia will take you, you know, especially post the pandemic, the way the psychiatric services have improved and have increased. You know, New Zealand will take you, USA, there's a big need. You know, you'd even get jobs in the UK, in South Africa. Yes, we also, you know, like psychiatric nurses because it's not everyone's cup of tea. You know, we have difficulty getting trained psychiatric nurses. So, you know, as I say, the world is your oyster. You can choose a country, but do your research. I can't sit here today and recommend a country. But I would suggest that you do your research and see what best serves you. Okay.
To add on to Sharon's answer, Ekta, I think if I'm not wrong, she's my student, master's student, mental health. So Uttar Pradesh government has a planning to tie up with the NHS, like where we are, my institution is situated, Uttar Pradesh. So they are having a direct, you know, tie up with the government of NHS, means UK. So there's a more demand for mental health nurses. The first demand they've asked is, please bring mental health nurses. So Ekta should not worry now because a place, state where she's studying has an opportunity that they are doing, and it is directly from government to government.
Okay, lovely. And that helps a great deal if you have to go with a government to government arrangement, you know, because you're almost guaranteed, you know, a position. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your questions. I hope it was helpful for you. And if you ever have any questions, Dr. Singh has my number and my details, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. You made this whole talk so well designed. You really taken a small details of every country, and participants were very happy because we can make out with the questions that they have really taken the content and about all countries, which is really required. And definitely we'll come back to you if any more questions from the participants. I think you are the expertise to answer these questions. And thank you for sparing this time for us and making this event and the evening really meaningful and intellectual, I must say. And I must take this opportunity to thank Dr. V.K. Singh, sir, also. Because of him, we are all here together here, sitting here and addressing, which is so important area for nurses. And he's so much keen on nursing profession and their growth and their career pathways. So we are really very, very fortunate to have Dr. V.K. Singh, sir, as a founder and a director for InnovatioCuris, where he's more concerned with the issues related to nursing profession, how do we resolve it, and how do we make nurses in a forefront in the community or in the hospital or anywhere. He wants to bring nurses to the leadership role. So this is one platform. It has begun. I think we can look forward with many more such webinars and talks from experts, which will be beneficial for the whole nursing fraternity. Thank you. Thanks to all the participants for listening to Dr. Sharon and being so patient to understand the things. Thank you. Thank you once again, each one of you, and have a great future ahead. Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.